Ladies and gents, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy back again, yeah, almost every day. A lot of work. This is Battlefield 5, and as I'm sure pretty much all of you know, we have a new time to kill, we have the 6.2 update now, but what I know from having looked around and read the comments and all that kind of stuff, is that the feedback from the community about the recoil and things like that is mega inconsistent. With some people saying there's loads, some people saying it's not any different, some people saying it's different on PC to console, and all kinds of random things. But the point is, the main concern right now I'm seeing is mega mixed feedback about the Type 2A, the game destroyer. You know, the gun that everyone was complaining about but everyone was using before. I've literally had people say to me that the Type 2A has no recoil still, or no extra recoil, or at the other end of the spectrum, people saying it has loads more recoil now, and it's really hard to use, and it's balanced now, and dudes, I'm racking my brain, okay? And I don't know what to do with it, but I hadn't used it. So I was like, okay, let me see what I think, and I can give an opinion. I can't tell you if everything's working properly or not, but I can say whether I think the gun is balanced, good, bad, that kind of stuff, and then you can share your opinion with me in the comments, and we can create kind of a community answer on where the Type 2A is right now. Still a game destroyer, or balanced, or underpowered? Oh, and I should say, all of the footage to open this video on the Solomon Islands here is from the old update, before the TTK change, so you can see what it was like, and when it changes to another round, that's when it's the new footage, okay? But what I did first was come up with a way to just test the recoil without any bias being in my mind yet. So, here we go. Alright, I'm here on the practice range. Yes, I'm actually a person using the practice range in Battlefield 5. That's crazy, right? And I've got the Type 2A, but it has no specializations on it because the practice range doesn't let you select any, because I don't really know why. They just haven't fixed that yet. So what I'm going to do is go on these targets here. I'm going to put the bullet tracer on and just see what this is like. I've not fired the Type 2A in the update at all so far. I'm going to predict that at the first one it's going to be fine, second one okay, third and fourth should be near impossible. Based on the recoil I've seen they've added and the fact that it was complained about a lot, I imagine they wanted to nerf it, but we'll find out. So from here, incroyable easy, okay? Actually, it kicked a little more than I expected, I'm not going to lie, but I think that's fairly solid. No problems there, that's just what it should be doing at close range. From this kind of range, this is outside what the Type 2A should do. So, we go here, and oh yeah, that's definitely... Did you turn the traces off, game? Alright, well, thanks. That's got to put them back on every time. That's awesome. So, I now have a bit of practice with it. You do have to burst fire that a bit. I'm trying to think, was I trying to use it at that range before? Probably not, but you can see that with a bit of burst fire, you can control that pretty well anyway. Most of those are hitting. Let's move it further back to a range where it's probably going to be... That's the wrong one, get good. To a range where it's probably going to be way outside. I bet that turned the trace off again, didn't it? Of course it did. So, that's going to be way out. That's... Oh, that's... Jesus Christ. If you want to see, I'm doing burst fire and controlling it, so that's actually fairly on target, some of that at least. But if you want to see just, I guess the test is really in full auto. It's, you're not, every time, oh, Jesus Christ, you're not going to hit the target a whole lot. It's just, nah, it's way outside. But that's how it should be. But this is the kind of range where you shouldn't be using it anyway. Bring it back to the front. I don't even care. Why are you doing that one? Oh, if the game would make anything work, that would be awesome. What this test is telling me is that the recoil has been increased. This stuff about the recoil not being increased on console, I don't think is correct, at least not for everything. Feels a little harder to use. But it's still perfectly viable, but it's still absolutely possible to hit the target if you're burst firing, it's just you can't full auto it, and I think that's fine. So far, I don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you. I think that's okay from that kind of range. But yeah, that isn't me instantly going, oh my god, it's still broken, this is stupid. I think that's reasonable. But let me go and play around with it against actual players. Okay, so the rest of the audio after this I've already recorded, and I talk about the recoil and how I think there might be more now and there's balance and blah blah blah, but then I'm watching my clips back here as I cut them for the video and I'm beaming some people, so I do not know. At this point we might need a clarification from DICE just to say yes, the recoil did get applied, because I don't know what to tell you guys. But enjoy the rest of the video. I don't know. Alright, so I've played with it and I have an opinion. Oh, do remember this is right here finishing off the old footage. When it goes to the next round, that'll be the new stuff on this update. And both the new and old footage is the default rate of fire with the 51 round magazine. I'm going to keep this kind of brief and not too detailed, as it's, you know, basically a a video of me sharing my opinion and you sharing yours in the comments rather than an analysis, and please do share your opinion down there. We need some solid feedback. So I think the Type 2A right now is fairly well balanced, but these are initial impressions and this may alter over time. I think it does have more recoil now, as the patch notes and community update indicated. It was something I felt like I was having to deal with. It did hamper my ability to contest at certain ranges where I feel like before I could quite comfortably. Of course, we're all open to suggestion and such though, and bias because I'm looking for it, the recoil might appear to be there, etc. But I believe it is there, and I believe it is reasonably significant on console. It still destroys up close as it should, although it's a little too forgiving in my eyes still due to the huge magazine. It's very easy to use where you're supposed to use it. It does sometimes pick people off from longer ranges, which it maybe shouldn't, but then again with semi-autos and other options now really dominating at mid-range, perhaps SMGs need a slight amount of leeway. I'll keep my eye on it to form an opinion as we progress through this update. And although fast-firing weapons such as this didn't get their optimal range abilities nerfed, whereas some slower-firing autos did when it comes to bullets to kill, it still struggles to compete with them at mid-range, which is entirely to be expected and is how I hoped it would be. I will say though, the recoil seemed kind of random at times, and we will come to that a little bit later on. But if you want to know specifically what the recoil nerfs were for this update, the Type 2A had its vertical recoil increased from 0.49 to 0.63. It also had its horizontal recoil increased from 1.1 to 1.14. It becomes inaccurate whilst hip firing slightly faster now, and apparently they fixed recoil not fully applying in some cases. Now that hints at the Type 2A perhaps being too easy to use before, especially if there was a bug, which wouldn't surprise very many of you, I imagine. Although I didn't think it was as OP as some felt, I did still think it was too good. And where the stats are concerned, it does now also require one more bullet to kill at all ranges than the Suomi and the Thompson. If you're interested in that aspect, it means that the Type 2A at its slower rate of fire, with a 51 round magazine, kills faster than the default fire rate Suomi and Thompson, but slower than them if they have light bolt. Of course, selecting light bolt for the Type 2A will put it back on top, although only at certain ranges. It starts to beat the Thompson at 11 meters for time to kill, and the Suomi at 21 meters for times to kill, I believe. So that's something to keep in mind. Light bolt, Suomi and Thompson actually superior to Type 2A with light bolt at close range, but then the Type 2A does have other advantages, and with more rounds available, 31 instead of 20. Shout out to the Type 100 though for having a fast rate of fire, being easier to control, and having a 30 round magazine plus a bipod, but it does require an extra bullet to kill whilst having, of course, a slower fire rate than the Type 2A. But for me, I'll pick the Type 2A if I really want a large magazine, but then I'll pick the Suomi or Thompson for pretty much everything else, basically if I want to be a bit more versatile when comparing those three options. Although the Type 100 may actually be my selection over all of them at the minute, I'll have to play around with it a bit more to make my final decision, and of course, the ZK3 at 3 with light bolt is a fantastic statistical option. Basically, there's a lot of competition for this role and they're all good. But now, why is there this confusion about the recoil on this weapon? Some saying there's a lot, some saying there's none, some saying it's not changed, etc. Well, this comes to what I said before about random recoil. There is a lot of talk going on to indicate that we might have returned to a more random recoil model. Now we're back to something like the 5.0 model, which makes things less reliable, less consistent, and you have a little less control over how the gun actually performs. So that might come down to it. Sometimes maybe there's not much, sometimes there's a lot, sometimes it goes left, right. We're not really sure. So that will cause a little bit of confusion about how it performs. There's also the difference between console and PC. Recoil is easy to manage on PC, as we know, even if there is a little bit more on there because of how the coding works. Using a mouse does make controlling it more viable, so that could be a factor. And of course, it can just be hard sometimes to compare old and new just in your head. There's a lot of subjective factors. Maybe we're not reliable at remembering or judging it properly. And then perhaps this is just the balance we're supposed to have where recoil is concerned. But I think the main issue wasn't actually addressed where this weapon is concerned. Being able to have 31 or 51 rounds per reload on two rates of fire that both exceed 1000 rounds per minute just isn't a great idea. It's going to be very hard to balance without a lot of recoil, and although some say there is a lot in this right now, I wouldn't say it's a truly massive amount, not compared to some other games out there, and still not compared to some weapons in the game. It's still very forgiving exactly where it's supposed to be used, close range. The extra range potency of it was an issue obviously, and reducing that is a step forwards, but I think this is kind of the SMG08 situation again from BF1, just maybe not quite as bad now. But please do let me know what you think, because that's what I think. I hope that kind of clears it up a bit. That's my opinion, and we can go through the comments and see what lots of other people think and bring it all together. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leaving a like is huge for me. I really appreciate it. It helps me to grow. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and maybe turning on notifications to stay up to date with the massive amount of content I've got coming out at the minute. And all the links to my social media, including Patreon, can be found in the description and my pinned comment. Here is the Board of Awesome for the epic people who already support me on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes and I love them all deeply and of course, often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy and I'll see you next time. Laters. But the ZK383 takes it from a stats perspective. Both the slower firing and faster firing options are viable. In the footage, I'm using the faster firing option due to the advantage fast firing autos currently have.